I remember exactly what you said last night. That was the first thing Lucas said when I opened my eyes. And just like that, my soul left my body. I blinked up at him, still half tangled in my sheets, sunlight cutting across his face like it had picked him as the main character today. He was leaning against my doorframe, arms crossed, wearing that stupid gray tank that should honestly be illegal before 9 a.m. My brain tried to reboot. Failed. What are you talking about? I croaked, already feeling something was very, very wrong. Lucas pushed off the frame and walked in slow, like he had all the time in the world, like I wasn't about to spontaneously combust. You were talking in your sleep, he said, casual, too casual, like this was a normal thing people survived. My stomach dropped. Hard. People mumble. I shot back quickly, sitting up so fast I almost tripped over my own blanket. Doesn't mean anything. He hummed, low, thoughtful, and that somehow made it worse. Yeah, he said, stepping closer. But not everyone says my name like they're begging me not to leave. Time. Stopped. I froze. Completely. My brain replayed the words. My name. Begging. Not to leave. Oh my God. No. No, 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 no. That did not happen. I laughed, sharp and fake, waving a hand like I could physically erase the conversation. You're messing with me. Am I? Lucas tilted his head, watching me like I was something interesting he wasn't done studying yet. He took another step, and suddenly he was too close. Close enough that I could see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw. The way his eyes tracked every tiny reaction I couldn't hide fast enough. Because I'm pretty sure you also said, he continued, voice dropping just enough to make my pulse trip over itself. Lucas, please stay. My heart slammed against my ribs like it was trying to file a complaint. I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. My entire body felt like it had short-circuited. I was dreaming. I managed finally, but it sounded weak even to me. Right? He said, not agreeing at all. His gaze didn't leave mine. If anything, it sharpened. Then why did it sound like you meant it? I swallowed. Big mistake. Because his eyes flicked to my throat for half a second before coming back up, and that tiny movement sent something electric down my spine. This was bad. This was so bad. You're overthinking it, I said, trying again, trying to stand, trying to put space between us, but he shifted just slightly, not blocking me, not touching me, just there enough that I stopped anyway. Like my body made the decision for me. Like it didn't want to move. His lips twitched, not quite a smile, not quite anything safe. Maybe, he murmured, softer now. Or maybe you've been thinking about it for a while. My chest tightened. The room suddenly felt too small, too warm, too full of him. I haven't, I said immediately, which would have been more convincing if I hadn't said it way too fast. His eyebrow lifted. That was all. Just a small, knowing raise. And somehow it felt louder than anything he could have said. Ethan, he said, my name slow, deliberate, like he was testing how it sounded when he actually meant it, and my entire system just crashed. I hated that. I hated how my stomach flipped, how my skin felt too tight, how every instinct screamed run and don't you dare move at the same time. He leaned in just a fraction, not enough to touch, just enough that I felt the shift in air between us. Warm, steady, intentional. If it was just a dream, he said quietly, why didn't you stop me from repeating it? I didn't have an answer. I knew that. He knew that. And the worst part? I wasn't even trying to find one anymore. I should have moved. That was the logical response. Step back, laugh it off, pretend none of this was happening. Instead, I stayed exactly where I was, like my feet had decided they were not part of this crisis. Lucas noticed. Of course he did. He noticed everything. His gaze dropped for a second, not even fully away from my eyes, just enough to register the fact that I had not put any distance between us. That small, almost invisible shift made his expression change. Not teasing. Not entirely. Something quieter. More focused. You are really bad at pretending, he said, and it was not a joke anymore. My chest tightened. I am not pretending. I shot back, but it came out softer than I meant it to. He did not move away. If anything, he leaned in just a fraction more, like he was testing a boundary I had not clearly drawn. Then look at me and say it again, he murmured. My brain short-circuited. Completely. Look at him. Say it again. Say what again? I knew exactly what. I hated that I knew exactly what. It was just a dream. I repeated, forcing the words out, forcing myself to meet his eyes this time. Big mistake. His gaze locked onto mine instantly, steady and unblinking, like he was searching for something underneath the words. He did not look convinced. Not even a little. A slow breath left him, almost like a quiet laugh without the sound. "You are lying," he said simply. No accusation. No edge. Just certainty. My stomach flipped so hard I felt it in my throat. "I am not," I insisted, even though every part of me knew I was doing a terrible job. His hand lifted slightly, and for one terrifying second I thought he was going to touch me. He did not. He stopped just short, fingers hovering near my arm, close enough that I could feel the warmth without contact. It was worse than if he had actually touched me. My skin reacted anyway, like it had made its own decision without consulting me. Lucas's eyes flicked to that space, then back up, slower this time. More deliberate. "You do that," he said quietly. "Freeze when you get caught." My heart stumbled. "I am not caught," I said, but the words sounded smaller now. He tilted his head again, studying me in that infuriatingly calm way. "Then why are you still here?" he asked. I opened my mouth. Nothing. Because he was right. I could have stepped away at any point. The door was right there. The room was not that small. There was space. I just had not taken it. His lips curved. Not quite a smile, but something close enough to make my pulse spike. "Exactly," he murmured. The silence stretched between us, thick and charged, like the air right before a storm breaks. I became hyper-aware of everything. The hum of the air conditioner, the faint scent of his laundry detergent, the way his breath moved, slow and steady, completely unaffected while mine felt like it was tripping over itself. "Ethan," he said again, softer this time, and my name sounded different coming from him now. Not casual, not absent-minded. Intentional. I swallowed, barely. "What?" I managed. He watched me for a long second, like he was deciding something, like he had reached a point where teasing was not enough anymore. Then, slowly, he closed the distance just a little more, not touching, just there, close enough that I had to tilt my head slightly to keep looking at him. "You said you liked me," he said, voice low, steady, undeniable. My heart slammed. "In your sleep," he added, quieter. A pause. Then, almost gently, "But I do not think that was the first time you thought it." I stopped breathing. Actually stopped. Because that was the part one could not joke away. The part one could not deflect. The part that had been sitting in my chest for months, quiet and stubborn and impossible to ignore. He saw it. I knew he saw it. His eyes did not leave mine, not even for a second. "So, I am going to ask you one more time," he said, and there was no teasing left now, just something steady and real that made my chest feel too tight to hold it. "Was it just a dream?" he continued, voice dropping just enough to make the words land heavier. "Or were you finally telling the truth when you thought I could not hear you?" I could feel it happening before I even said anything. That moment when everything shifts and there is no safe way back to where it was before. My chest felt tight, like I had been holding something in for too long, and it finally decided it was done waiting. Lucas was still right there, still watching me like he had all the patience in the world, like he was not going anywhere until I answered him. That somehow made it worse. If he had pushed harder, if he had joked, if he had given me an easy way out, maybe I would have taken it. But he did not. He just stood there, steady and quiet, letting the silence press in until it felt heavier than any words I could say. "Ethan," he said again, softer now, not demanding, just there, like he was giving me space and taking it at the same time. My throat felt dry. I swallowed, and even that sounded too loud in the room. I could hear my own heartbeat, fast and uneven, like it had lost track of what it was supposed to be doing. "It does not matter," I said finally, and the second the words left my mouth, I knew it was the wrong answer. His expression shifted just slightly. Not hurt, not angry, just something that looked like he had expected better. "It matters to me," he replied, and that hit harder than anything else he had said so far. My eyes dropped for a second, just a second, but it was enough. He noticed. Of course he noticed. He always noticed. "Why?" I asked, quieter now, because I could not keep pretending this was nothing. He did not answer right away. That scared me more than if he had answered immediately. He took a breath, slow and controlled, like he was choosing his words carefully. Then he stepped closer again, just enough that I had to tilt my head slightly to keep looking at him. "Because you said my name like it meant something," he said. Simple. Direct. No teasing. No deflection. My chest tightened again, sharper this time. I hated how easy it was for him to cut through everything I was trying to hide. People say things when they are asleep. I tried, but it sounded weak even to me. His gaze did not waver. Not like that, he said quietly. A pause. Then, softer. Not like you did. My fingers curled slightly at my sides, like my body was trying to ground itself in something solid. This was not supposed to happen like this. I was supposed to keep this to myself. Keep it quiet. Keep it safe. Not have it pulled out into the open at 8 in the morning with sunlight and no place to hide. Lucas. I started, but the rest of the sentence got stuck somewhere between my chest and my throat. He waited. He did not interrupt. He did not rush me. He just stood there, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him, steady enough that it made my own unsteady breathing feel even more obvious. I did not mean for you to hear that, I said instead, because it was the only thing I could say without completely falling apart. His lips pressed together for a second, like he was holding back something, then he exhaled softly. I know, he said, and somehow that was worse, because there was no accusation in it. No blame, just understanding. My chest twisted. Then why are you making this a big deal? I asked, even though I already knew the answer was not going to be simple. He tilted his head slightly, studying me again, but this time there was something softer in his eyes, something that made it harder to look away. Because you are acting like it does not mean anything, he said. A beat. Then, quieter, and I do not think that is true. My breath caught. He took one last small step forward, closing the space between us to almost nothing, and for a second I thought I might actually stop functioning entirely. So, I am not going to pretend I did not hear it, he continued, voice low but steady. And I am not going to let you pretend it did not matter. My heart pounded harder, louder, like it was trying to answer for me. I looked at him, really looked this time, and realized something I had been trying very hard not to see. He was not teasing me anymore. Not really. There was something else there now. Something real. Something that made everything feel a lot more dangerous than before. Then what do you want me to say? I asked, barely above a whisper. His gaze softened just a fraction, but he did not look away. The truth, he said. I stared at him like the word itself had weight, like it had been sitting there between us this entire time, and I had just been pretending not to see it. The truth. It sounded simple. It was not. My fingers tightened at my sides, nails pressing lightly into my palms like I needed something to anchor me. Lucas did not move. He did not rush me. He just waited, eyes steady, patient in a way that made it impossible to hide behind excuses anymore. I took a breath. It came out uneven. You are asking for something you already know? I said quietly, because that felt safer than actually saying it out loud. His expression softened just a little, but he did not look away. I want to hear you say it, he replied, just as calm, just as certain. My heart slammed harder against my ribs, like it was trying to escape the situation entirely. Why? I asked again, even though my voice barely held together now. He tilted his head slightly, watching me like he was reading every hesitation, every pause. Because I think you have been holding it in for a long time, he said, and I do not think you should have to anymore. That did something to me. Something quiet and dangerous. The room felt smaller, warmer, like the air itself was pressing closer, wrapping around every word I had not said yet. I let out a slow breath, but it did not steady me the way I wanted it to. Nothing about this felt steady. You are making this harder than it needs to be, I said, but there was no real push behind it. No resistance left. Lucas's lips curved slightly, not teasing, just knowing. I think you have been doing that to yourself already, he answered. That landed hard. I looked away for a second, just enough to break the intensity, but even that felt like losing something. I could still feel him there, still feel the way his attention stayed on me like it had nowhere else it wanted to be. Ethan, he said again, softer now, and my name sounded different again. Not like a question, not like a joke, something closer to reassurance. I closed my eyes for half a second, just enough to gather what little composure I had left. When I opened them again, he was still there, still close, still waiting, always waiting. I hated that he was this patient. I hated that he made it feel safe enough to even consider saying it. I did not say it because I thought you would hear me. I said slowly, choosing each word like it mattered, because it did. I said it because it was the only place I could say it without dealing with this. My voice dropped at the end, almost lost under the weight of it. His gaze softened again, more noticeable this time. Not pity. Not anything like that. Just understanding. Dealing with me, he repeated quietly. I huffed out a small, breathless sound that might have been a laugh if I had more control over anything right now. Yeah, I admitted, because there was no point pretending anymore. You make it complicated. That earned the smallest shift in his expression, something warmer, something that almost looked like he understood exactly what I meant. Or maybe I make it real, he said. That hit somewhere deeper than I was ready for. I swallowed again, slower this time, trying to keep my voice from giving everything away before I was ready. And if I say it, I said carefully, meeting his eyes again, then what? The question hung there between us, heavier than anything else so far. Because this was not just about me anymore. This was about what happened after. Lucas did not answer right away. He watched me for a long second, like he was considering how much to give away. Then, slowly, he lifted his hand again. This time, he did not stop. His fingers brushed lightly against my wrist, barely there, but enough to send a sharp, unexpected jolt through me. Not overwhelming. Not too much. Just enough to be undeniable. I froze again, but not in the same way as before. This time, it was not panic. It was something else. Something quieter. Then we stopped pretending, he said softly, his voice steady in a way mine was not. My breath caught. My eyes dropped to where his hand rested, light but certain, like he was not afraid of crossing that line anymore. Slowly, I looked back up at him. He did not pull away. He did not look unsure. He just waited, still patient. But this time there was something else under it. Something that made my chest feel tight in a completely different way. So, he added, just above a whisper now, say it. My pulse was so loud I was sure he could hear it. Maybe he could. His hand was still around my wrist, light but steady, like he was grounding me and holding me there at the same time. I stared at him, at the way he was not looking away, not backing off, not giving me an easy escape like I had been hoping for. You are not going to let this go, are you? I said, my voice barely holding together. His lips curved just a little, not teasing, not mocking, just certain. No, he answered simply. Of course not. That would have been too easy. I let out a shaky breath, my free hand dragging through my hair like maybe I could shake the words loose without actually saying them. It did not work. Nothing was working. He was still there. Still waiting. Always waiting. And the worst part? I did not actually want him to stop. That realization hit harder than anything else. My chest tightened, sharp and sudden, like something inside me had finally decided to stop pretending along with him. I looked down at his hand on my wrist, at the way his fingers rested there like it was the most natural thing in the world, like he had every right to be that close. Slowly, I looked back up at him. He was watching me in that same quiet way, but there was something else now. Something softer. Something that made it harder to lie. I hate this, I muttered under my breath. His eyebrow lifted slightly. Hate what? He asked. I let out a small, breathless laugh that had no humor in it. The fact that you are right, I admitted, because apparently I had already crossed the line into honesty whether I liked it or not. That earned a real reaction. Small but real. His expression shifted, just a little, like something in him relaxed at hearing that. Then stop fighting it, he said, voice low and steady. My heart did something complicated at that. I swallowed, forcing myself to hold his gaze even though everything in me wanted to look away again. You make it sound easy, I said. It is not. I did not say it was easy, he replied. I said it was simple. Simple. Right. Sure. My grip tightened at my sides again, my fingers curling like I needed something to hold on to. Maybe I did. Maybe that was the problem. I had been holding on to this for too long, and now I did not know how to let it go without everything unraveling. If I say it, I said slowly, carefully, like each word might break something if I was not careful enough. Things are going to change. His gaze did not waver. They already have, he answered quietly. That hit. Deep. Because he was right. This moment had already changed everything. There was no going back to normal after this. No pretending it had not happened. I took a breath. It did not steady me, but it was enough. Enough to push the words forward. I stopped. Of course I did. My brain stalled. At the worst possible moment. Lucas did not interrupt. He did not rush me. But his thumb shifted slightly against my wrist, the smallest movement, barely there, and somehow it gave me just enough to keep going. I like you, I said, finally, the words coming out quieter than I expected, but clear enough that there was no taking them back. Silence followed. Heavy. Immediate. My heart pounded harder, like it was waiting for something, anything, to happen next. Lucas did not pull away. He did not react right away either. He just looked at me, really looked at me, like he was taking in every part of what I had just said. Then, slowly, something in his expression softened. Not surprise. Not confusion. Something else. Something that made my chest feel even tighter than before. Yeah, he said, almost under his breath, like it was something he had already known. That made my stomach flip in a completely new way. That was not as hard as you made it out to be, he added quietly. I huffed out a breath, something between relief and disbelief. Speak for yourself, I muttered. That earned the faintest hint of a smile from him, small but real. And then, just as quickly, it faded into something more serious. His hand tightened slightly around my wrist, not enough to hurt, just enough to keep me there. Good, he said softly. My heart skipped. Good. I echoed, confused, because I was not sure what part of this was supposed to be good. His gaze held mine, steady and clear. Because now we can stop pretending, he said. And something about the way he said it made it sound less like a suggestion and more like the beginning of something I was not ready for, but did not want to stop. The words hung in the air longer than I expected, like they had weight, like they needed time to settle into something real. I could still feel his hand around my wrist, steady, grounding, impossible to ignore. And somehow, that made everything feel more real than anything else that had happened so far. I swallowed slowly, trying to figure out what came next, because clearly I had not thought that far ahead. So, what now? I asked, my voice quieter than I meant it to be, like I was not entirely sure I wanted the answer. Lucas did not respond right away. His gaze stayed on me, steady, thoughtful, like he was considering something I could not see yet. That made my chest tighten again, a different kind of tension now, less panic and more anticipation. He finally exhaled softly, his thumb shifting slightly against my wrist again, a small, almost absent movement that still managed to send a subtle warmth through me. Now, he said, voice low and calm, we figure out what to do with it. That sounded simple. It was not. Not even close. I let out a small breath, my free hand hovering awkwardly at my side before I forced it to relax. You make that sound like a group project. I muttered, trying to lighten the moment, trying to grab onto something familiar before I lost my balance completely. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. It kind of is, he replied. That did not help. Not even a little. My heart was still doing something unpredictable in my chest, like it had not decided whether to calm down or keep spiraling. Probably both. I shifted my weight slightly, testing the space between us, but he did not move back. If anything, the space felt even smaller now, like the line we had been carefully staying on had already disappeared. You are way too calm about this, I said, studying him, trying to understand how he could stand there like this was not a big deal when it felt like my entire world had just tilted. He tilted his head slightly, considering that. I have had more time to think about it than you have, he said. That made me pause. What do you mean? I asked, my voice tightening just a little. His gaze softened again, not teasing, not pushing, just honest. You said it last night, he reminded me quietly. I heard it. I had time to decide how I felt about it. My chest tightened again, sharper this time. And I started, then stopped, because I was not sure I was ready to hear the answer, even though I needed it. He watched me for a second, like he knew exactly what I was about to ask. Then he stepped just a fraction closer, closing the distance enough that I had to tilt my head again to keep looking at him. My breath caught. Again. This was becoming a pattern. And I did not hate it, he said simply. The words landed heavier than anything else he had said so far. Not hate it. Not a joke. Not avoidance. Something real. My fingers twitched slightly at my sides, like my body did not know what to do with that information. That is a very vague answer, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, trying to pretend I was not holding on to every word like it mattered more than it should. His lips curved just slightly again, but this time there was something softer in it. It is an honest one, he replied. I huffed out a breath, something between frustration and relief, because apparently I was going to have to work for this just like everything else. You are really not going to make this easy for me, I muttered. He shook his head slightly, almost amused now. No, he said, but I am not making it harder either. My chest tightened again, but this time it felt different. Less like pressure, more like something slowly unfolding. I looked at him, really looked this time, and realized something I had been too distracted to notice before. He was not pulling away. Not physically, not emotionally. If anything, he was meeting me halfway in a way I had not expected. So you are saying, I started slowly, choosing my words carefully, that you heard me confess in my sleep, and instead of pretending it did not happen, you decided to stand in my room at 8 in the morning and make me admit it again. His eyes flickered slightly with something warmer, something that almost looked like satisfaction. Pretty much, he said. I stared at him. Then, despite everything, despite the tension, despite the fact that my heart was still racing like it had not gotten the memo to calm down, a small, helpless laugh slipped out. That is kind of messed up, I said. He shrugged lightly, his grip on my wrist still steady, still there. Maybe, he admitted, but it worked. I opened my mouth to argue, to push back, to say something that would give me control again, but nothing came out. Because he was right. It had worked. I had said it. Out loud. To him. And now there was no taking it back. The silence stretched again, but it did not feel as heavy as before. It felt different. Like something had shifted into place. Lucas's gaze stayed on mine, steady and certain, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I did not feel like running. I just stood there, still caught between panic and something I could not quite name yet, waiting to see what he would do next. The silence stretched just a second too long, and that was when it hit me. He still had not actually answered the one thing that mattered. My eyes narrowed slightly, my brain finally catching up through the haze of panic and whatever this new feeling was. Wait, I said, my voice sharper now, cutting through the tension just enough to shift it. Lucas's brow lifted a fraction, like he had been expecting that. What? He asked calmly. I stared at him, really stared this time, replaying everything he had said, everything he had not said. You said you did not hate it, I pointed out, my voice steadying as I focused on the gap in his answer. That is not the same as saying you feel the same way. There it was, out in the open. The question I had been dancing around finally took shape, solid and unavoidable. His expression changed. Not dramatically, just enough that I noticed. The faint curve of his mouth faded, replaced by something more thoughtful, more careful. For the first time since this started, he did not answer immediately. My chest tightened again, this time sharper, more familiar. That was the part one knew how to handle. The part where things did not line up the way I hoped they would. I let out a quiet breath, already bracing myself, already preparing to pull back, to retreat before this could get worse. You do not have to say anything, I added quickly, the words coming out faster than I intended. I mean, it is fine. I get it. This is weird. I made it weird. We can just, Ethan. My name stopped me mid-sentence. Not loud, not forceful, just firm enough to cut through the spiral I was already falling into. I froze again. Of course I did. Lucas's gaze held mine, steady, grounded, like he was not going to let me talk my way out of this one either. You are doing that thing again, he said quietly. I blinked. What thing? I asked, even though I had a feeling I knew exactly what he meant. His thumb shifted lightly against my wrist again, a small reminder that he was still there, still holding on to me in a way that felt intentional now. Running ahead and deciding the outcome before I even get to answer, he said. That landed. Hard. I swallowed, my eyes flicking down for half a second before coming back up to meet his. I am not. I started, but he gave me a look that made the words die in my throat. Not harsh, not accusing, just knowing. You are, he said simply. A beat. Then, softer, and you are wrong. My breath caught. Completely. Everything in me stilled for a second, like my body had to pause just to process that. Wrong. He thought I was wrong. My heart, which had just been preparing for impact, stumbled in a completely different direction. Then say it. I said, quieter now, but more direct than before. Because right now, I do not know what you are thinking. His gaze softened again, more noticeably this time, like something in him had shifted once I stopped trying to run from the moment. He took a slow breath, and for the first time since this started, I saw a hint of something that looked like hesitation. Not doubt, just consideration. I did not say I did not feel the same way, he said carefully. My chest tightened again, but this time it was not panic. It was something sharper. Anticipation. You also did not say that you do. I replied, holding his gaze, not letting him redirect this time. If I was going to be honest, then he had to be too. He studied me for a long second, like he was deciding how much to give, how much to hold back. Then, slowly, his grip on my wrist loosened just slightly, not letting go, just enough that it felt less like he was holding me in place and more like he was choosing to stay connected. I think, he said, his voice quieter now, more deliberate, that I have been trying not to think about it. My stomach flipped. Why? I asked before I could stop myself. His lips pressed together for a second, like he was weighing the answer. Then he exhaled softly, his gaze never leaving mine. Because we live together, he said. Because you are important to me. That hit somewhere deeper than anything else so far. My breath caught again, softer this time, less panic and more something I did not have a name for yet. He tilted his head slightly, watching me, like he was making sure I understood what he was saying. And because once I actually admit it, he added quietly, it stops being simple. The words settled between us, heavy but honest, and for the first time, I realized he had been standing on the same edge I had, just on the other side of it. The words settled between us like something fragile, like if either of us moved too fast it might crack. It stops being simple. I let that sink in, turning it over in my head, feeling the weight of it. Because he was right. This had never really been simple. I just made it look that way by keeping everything locked inside, by pretending it was easier not to deal with it. But now it was out. Now it was real. And he felt it too. My chest tightened again, but this time it was not sharp or panicked. It was something slower, something deeper. So you have thought about it, I said quietly, watching him closely, because that was the part that mattered. Not the hesitation, not the complication, the fact that it had crossed his mind at all. Lucas did not look away. He did not deny it. Yeah, he admitted, just as quietly. That one word did more than anything else he could have said. My breath caught, softer this time, like something inside me had just shifted into place. When? I asked before I could stop myself. He huffed out a small breath, almost like he was deciding how honest to be now that we had crossed this line. More than once, he said. My heart did something ridiculous in my chest, a strange mix of relief and something dangerously close to hope. I tried to keep my face neutral. Failed. And you just ignored it, I said, because I needed to understand, needed to know why we had both been standing on opposite sides of the same thing without saying anything. His grip on my wrist shifted again, loosening just enough that his fingers brushed instead of held, like the contact had changed. Without either of us fully acknowledging it. I did not ignore it, he said. I just did not act on it. That sounded like the same thing. It was not. I knew that. I just did not want to admit it out loud. Because of the whole it stops being simple thing, I said, a little dry, trying to ground myself in something familiar again. He nodded slightly. And because I did not know if you felt the same way, he added. That made me blink. You could have asked. I pointed out, even though my voice came out softer than I meant it to. His lips curved faintly, not quite amused, just aware. You could have told me, he countered. Fair. Annoyingly fair. I exhaled, shaking my head a little, because somehow we had both managed to end up in the exact same situation without realizing it. So we both just decided to suffer in silence, I muttered. That earned a quiet huff from him, something that might have been a laugh if the moment had been lighter. Seems like it, he said. The air between us shifted again, less tense now, but still charged with something that had not fully settled yet. My eyes dropped briefly to where his fingers still hovered near my wrist, not holding anymore, just there, like he had not decided whether to let go or not. Slowly, I looked back up at him. He was already watching me. Still. Always. So what changed? I asked, because that was the part one needed to understand. Why now? Why this? His expression softened again, more openly this time, like he was not trying to hide behind anything anymore. You did, he said simply. My stomach flipped. By talking in my sleep, I said, a little incredulous. His lips twitched slightly. By being honest, he corrected gently. That hit deeper than I expected. I swallowed, my chest tightening again, but not in a bad way. Not in a way that made me want to run. More like something opening up, slowly, carefully. I did not mean to be, I admitted. I know, he said again, and there was that same quiet understanding in his voice that made everything feel a little less overwhelming. A small silence settled between us, but it was different now. Not heavy, not suffocating, just full. Like there was more there then. Before, more than either of us knew what to do with yet. So, I said after a second, my voice softer now, less defensive, more curious. What does that mean for us? The question hung there. Simple, but not simple at all. Lucas looked at me for a long moment, like he was considering the answer carefully, like he knew it mattered. Then, slowly, he shifted his hand completely, not pulling away, just letting his fingers slide from my wrist to my hand. A small, deliberate movement that made my breath catch again. Not overwhelming. Not too much. Just enough to be clear. It means, he said quietly, his voice steady in a way that grounded everything else. We do not ignore it anymore. My heart skipped. And for the first time since this started, I did not feel like I was falling. I felt like I was standing on something real, even if I did not know exactly where it was going yet. His fingers settled around mine like it was the most natural thing in the world, like we had skipped over something without actually skipping it at all. My breath caught again, softer this time, not sharp or panicked, just aware. I looked down at our hands for a second, like I needed visual confirmation that this was actually happening, that I had not somehow imagined the shift. His grip was light, not trapping, not demanding, just there, present, steady. I swallowed slowly and looked back up at him. He was already watching me, his expression calm but not distant, like he was giving me space to react while still staying exactly where he was. You are very calm for someone who just changed everything, I said quietly, because that was the only way I could make sense of it. He tilted his head slightly, considering that. I think everything changed before this, he replied. This is just us finally acknowledging it. That made my chest tighten again, but in a way that felt right. Not overwhelming. Just real. I let out a small breath, my thumb shifting slightly against his hand without really thinking about it. The moment I noticed, I froze. Of course I did. Lucas noticed too. Of course he did. His gaze flicked down briefly, then back up, something softer settling into his expression, like he had just filed that detail away somewhere. Important. You keep doing that, he said quietly. Doing what? I asked, even though I already knew the answer was going to make me more aware of every small movement I made. Acting like you are surprised you are not pulling away, he said. That hit. Direct. Accurate. I huffed out a quiet breath, shaking my head slightly. I am surprised, I admitted. I thought I would be freaking out more. His lips curved faintly, not amused, just warm. You kind of did already, he pointed out. Fair. I rolled my eyes a little, but there was no real bite behind it. That was before, I said. Before what? He asked. I hesitated. Then, quietly. Before I knew you were not going to pretend this did not happen. His gaze softened again, more openly this time. I told you, he said. I am not ignoring it. My chest tightened, but not in a way that made me want to pull back. More like something settling into place. Yeah, I murmured, almost to myself. A small silence followed, but it did not feel awkward. It felt steady, like we were both standing in the same place now instead of circling around it. My eyes dropped to our hands again, then back up. So what does not ignoring it actually look like? I asked, because that was the part that still felt unclear, still felt like the edge of something I could not quite see yet. Lucas studied me for a second, like he was making sure I really wanted the answer before he gave it. Then he shifted slightly, stepping just a fraction closer, enough that I could feel the warmth of him without it being overwhelming. It looks like this, he said quietly, his voice steady. My heart skipped. And then what? I asked, softer now, because I could feel the direction this was heading, and it made something in my chest tighten in a way that was not entirely fear anymore. He did not answer right away. Instead, his fingers adjusted slightly around mine, not tightening, just fitting better, like he was testing what it felt like to hold on without holding too tight. That small movement sent a subtle warmth up my arm, something quiet but impossible to ignore. Then we stop pretending this is nothing, he said finally. My breath caught again, but I did not look away this time. And if it turns into something, I said slowly, choosing my words carefully, what happens then? His gaze held mine, steady and clear, like he had already thought about this more than he was letting on. Then we deal with it, he said simply. That sounded so easy when he said it. I knew it was not. He knew it was not. But there was something about the way he said it that made it feel possible, like it was not something I had to figure out alone anymore. My chest tightened again, softer now, less like pressure and more like something opening up. You really do not overcomplicate things, do you? I muttered. His lips curved slightly again. I do, he said. I just decided not to this time. That made me pause. Why? I asked, quieter now. His expression shifted again, just a little, something more serious settling in. He did not look away. Because you matter more than keeping things simple, he said. The words landed heavier than anything else he had said so far. My breath caught. Completely. And just like that, everything felt a little less uncertain and a lot more real. The words lingered longer than anything else he had said so far, settling somewhere deep in my chest where I could not ignore them even if I tried. You matter more than keeping things simple. I stared at him, my mind going completely blank for a second like it had not prepared for that kind of answer. My fingers tightened slightly around his without thinking, the movement small but real, and the second I noticed it, my breath caught again. Lucas noticed too. Of course he did. His gaze dropped briefly to our hands, then lifted back up, something quieter and more certain settling into his expression. You keep doing that, he said softly. I blinked. What now? I asked, even though I had a feeling I was about to be called out again. His thumb shifted lightly against my hand, not pulling away, just tracing the smallest movement like he was testing the reaction. Holding on, he said. My heart stumbled. I am not. I started automatically, but the words felt weak even as I said them. Because I was. I could feel it. The way my fingers had curled just slightly, the way I had not even considered. Pulling back. Lucas did not argue. He did not need to. He just looked at me, steady and patient, like he knew I would figure it out on my own. I let out a slow breath, my shoulders dropping just a fraction as I gave up on pretending otherwise. Okay, I admitted quietly. Maybe I am. His lips curved slightly, not teasing, just acknowledging. That is not a bad thing, he said. That should not have made my chest tighten the way it did, but it did, because I had spent so much time telling myself it was. That liking him was something I needed to keep contained, controlled, out of reach. And now he was standing here, holding my hand like it was not something to hide, like it was something allowed. It feels like a bad thing. I muttered, my voice softer now, less defensive, more honest. His gaze softened again, more openly this time. Only because you have been treating it like one, he said. I swallowed, my eyes flicking down to our hands again before coming back up. He was right. Again. That was starting to become a pattern I did not know how to deal with. You are really annoying when you make sense, I said under my breath. That earned a quiet huff from him, something that almost sounded like a laugh. I have been told that, he replied. The moment shifted slightly, lighter at the edges, but the center of it stayed the same. Steady. Real. I shifted my weight again, not to pull away this time, just adjusting, getting used to standing this close without immediately panicking. So what? I said slowly, meeting his eyes again. We just act like this is normal now. His head tilted slightly, considering that. It can be, he said, if you let it. That was the part that made my chest tighten again, but not in a bad way. In a way that felt like standing at the edge of something new, something uncertain, but not necessarily dangerous. And if I do not? I asked quietly. His gaze held mine, steady and calm, not pushing, not forcing. Then we go slower, he said. Simple. No pressure. No expectations. Just an option. That did something to me. Something quiet and steady that settled somewhere deep in my chest. I let out a breath I did not realize. I was holding, my grip on his hand easing just slightly, not pulling away, just relaxing. Lucas noticed that too. Of course he did. His thumb brushed lightly against my knuckles again, a small, almost absent movement that still made my pulse trip over itself. You are thinking too much, he said softly. I huffed out a small breath. That is kind of my thing, I admitted. His lips curved faintly again. I know, he said. A pause. Then, quieter. That is why I am here. My chest tightened again, softer now, less like pressure and more like something settling into place. I looked at him, really looked this time, and realized something I had not fully processed yet. He was not just reacting to this. He was choosing it. Choosing to stay. Choosing to step forward instead of back. You are not going to back out of this, are you? I said quietly. His gaze did not waver. No, he answered simply. My heart skipped again, but this time it did not feel like panic. It felt like something steadier. Something that might actually hold. I glanced down at our hands one more time, then back up at him. A small, almost disbelieving breath slipping out. "Okay," I said, barely above a whisper. And for the first time, it did not feel like I was bracing for something to fall apart. It felt like I was stepping into something that might actually stay. The word hung between us longer than I expected, quieter than everything else, but somehow heavier. Okay. It felt small compared to everything that had just shifted, but Lucas did not treat it that way. His gaze stayed on me, steady and focused, like he understood exactly what that one word meant coming from me. My fingers were still loosely wrapped around his, not tight, not hesitant anymore, just there, present. I took a slow breath, letting it settle, letting myself exist in this moment without immediately trying to analyze every possible outcome. That alone felt new. "You are thinking again," Lucas said softly, and there was no teasing in it this time, just observation. I huffed out a quiet breath. "I never stopped," I admitted. His thumb brushed lightly over my knuckles again, a small, grounding motion that somehow made the noise in my head quiet down just a little. "Try not to overcomplicate this." "Part," he said. "This part," I repeated, glancing at him. "Which part is that?" His lips curved faintly, something warm and subtle. "The part where we just stay here for a second," he said. I blinked, a little thrown by how simple that sounded. Just stay here. No big decisions. No pressure. Just this. I exhaled slowly, my shoulders relaxing a fraction more than before. "I think I can handle that," I said quietly. He nodded once, like that was enough. Like he did not need anything more from me right now. The silence that followed was different from before. Not heavy, not tense, just calm. The kind of quiet that felt intentional instead of awkward. I became aware of small things again. The faint sound of traffic outside. The soft hum of the air conditioning. The way the morning light shifted slightly across the floor. And him. Always him. Still standing close. Still not letting go. My gaze drifted to our hands again, then back up to his face. He was watching me, but not in that intense, searching way from before. Softer now. Like he was just there. "You are really not going to make a big deal out of this, are you?" I said after a second, my voice quieter, more curious than anything else. He tilted his head slightly, considering that. "Do you want me to?" he asked. I thought about it. About what it would mean if he did. If he turned this into something bigger, something heavier, something harder to hold on to without it slipping. "No," I said finally. I think I would panic again. That earned a small, almost amused breath from him. "Then I will not," he said simply. My chest tightened again, but softer this time, less like pressure and more like something settling into place. "You are very accommodating all of a sudden," I muttered. His lips curved just slightly. "Only where it matters," he replied. That made my heart skip again, but this time I did not fight it. I let it happen. Let the feeling sit there without trying to push it away or explain it. A small shift happened then, almost unnoticed at first. His fingers adjusted slightly around mine, not tightening, just holding more intentionally. Like he had made a decision without saying it out loud. I felt it. Of course I did. And this time, I did not freeze. I did not panic. I just stayed. "Lucas," I said quietly, testing the way his name felt now that everything had changed. He looked at me immediately, like he had been waiting for it. "Yeah," he answered, just as quietly. I hesitated for half a second, then let the words come out before I could overthink them. "You are really serious about this, aren't you?" His gaze did not waver. Not even a little. "I am," he said. No hesitation. No uncertainty. Just a simple, steady truth. My chest tightened again, but it did not feel overwhelming anymore. It felt grounding, like something I could actually hold on to instead of something I needed to run from. I nodded slightly, more to myself than to him. "Okay," I said again, softer this time, but with a little more weight behind it. He watched me for a second, like he was making sure I meant it this time, like he was checking that I was not going to take it back. Then his expression softened just a fraction more, something warm settling into his eyes. "Okay," he echoed. And just like that, the moment did not feel like something fragile anymore. It felt like something that could actually last. Something about the way he said it lingered longer than it should have, like the word okay had turned into something bigger without either of us changing it. I could feel it in the way he was still looking at me, steady and sure, like he had already stepped forward and was waiting to see if I would follow without pulling back. My hand was still in his, and at this point, it did not feel strange anymore. It felt intentional, like a choice I was actively making instead of something I had fallen into by accident. I shifted slightly, not to move away, just to adjust my balance, and his fingers followed the movement naturally, like he had already gotten used to it. That small detail made something warm settle in my chest, something quiet but steady. "This is kind of weird," I said softly, glancing at our hands again before looking back up at him. His brow lifted just slightly. "Weird how?" he asked. I exhaled, searching for the right words, but everything felt too big and too small at the same time. We went from pretending nothing was happening to this, I said, gesturing slightly between us with my free hand. "In like 10 minutes. His lips curved faintly, something thoughtful in his expression. "It has been longer than 10 minutes, he said. We just did not say anything out loud until now. That made me pause. Because he was right. Again, I huffed out a small breath, shaking my head slightly. "You really like being right, do you?" I muttered. That earned a quiet, almost amused exhale from him. "Not particularly," he said. "I just like when things make sense." My chest tightened again, but softer this time, like I was starting to understand the rhythm of this instead of fighting it. "And this makes sense to you?" I asked, watching him closely. He did not hesitate. "Yeah," he said simply. That answer came too easily, too confidently, and somehow, that made it easier for me to believe it. I let out a slow breath, my shoulders relaxing just a little more. "I am still catching up," I admitted. His thumb brushed lightly against my hand again, that same grounding motion that was starting to feel familiar now. "That is fine," he said. "You do not have to rush it." I nodded slightly, more to myself than to him, letting that settle in. No rush, no pressure, just this. A small silence followed, but it did not feel empty. It felt like space. Space to think, to breathe, to exist without immediately jumping to the next step. My eyes drifted to his face again, taking in the way he looked right now, calm but focused, like he had already decided something important and was just waiting for me to meet him there. "You are really patient," I said quietly. He tilted his head slightly, like he had not expected that. "With you," he corrected. My chest tightened again, but this time it came with something softer, something that made it harder to look away. I held his gaze for a second longer than I meant to, then let out a small breath. "That is new," I said, because it was. I was used to people losing patience, to things becoming complicated and messy when emotions got involved. This felt different. Lucas's expression softened just a fraction more, like he understood exactly what I meant without me having to explain it. "You are worth being patient for," he said. The words landed gently, but they stayed. I could feel them settle somewhere deep, somewhere I had not realized was still waiting for something like that. My fingers tightened slightly around his again, not out of panic this time, just holding on. He noticed. Of course he did. His gaze flicked down briefly, then back up, something warmer settling in his eyes. "You keep doing that," he said again, softer now. I huffed out a quiet breath, but there was no real resistance behind it anymore. "Yeah," I admitted. "I know." A small pause. Then, quieter, "I do not think I want to stop." The words slipped out before I could overthink them, but this time I did not regret it. Lucas did not react immediately, but his grip shifted again, just slightly, like he was acknowledging it without making it bigger than it needed to be. "Good," he said simply. And for the first time, that word did not make my chest tighten with uncertainty. It felt right. The words settled between us like it had always belonged there, simple but steady, and for the first time since this whole thing started, nothing about it felt fragile anymore. I could still feel his hand in mine, warm and certain, and now it did not feel like something I had to question. It felt like something I chose. Something we both chose. I let out a slow breath, my shoulders finally relaxing in a way they had not all morning, like my body was catching up to the fact that I was not about to lose this moment. Lucas was still watching me, but it was different now. Not searching, not waiting for me to break. Just present, like he was right here with me instead of standing on the edge of something uncertain. "So," I said quietly, glancing at him, "this is real now." It was not really a question, but it came out like one anyway. He tilted his head slightly, considering that, then nodded once. "Yeah," he said. No hesitation, no second guessing. Just that same steady certainty he had been holding on to this entire time. My chest tightened again, but not in a way that made me want to run. It felt like something settling into place, something that fit better than I expected it to. I looked down at our hands one more time, then back up at him, a small breath slipping out before I could stop it. "You are taking this surprisingly well," I said. He huffed out a quiet breath, something that almost sounded like a laugh. "You are the one who is surprised," he pointed out. "Fair." I rolled my eyes slightly, but there was no real edge behind it anymore. "I just thought this would be more complicated," I admitted. His lips curved faintly, something thoughtful in his expression. "It might be," he said. "We just do not have to make it that way right now." That made sense. It should not have, but it did. I nodded slightly, letting that settle, letting myself stay in this moment instead of jumping ahead to everything that could go wrong. "Okay," I said again, softer this time, but more certain. He watched me for a second, like he was making sure I meant it, like he was giving me one last chance to pull back if I wanted to. I did not. His expression softened just a little more, something warm and quiet settling into his eyes. Then, slowly, he shifted his hand slightly, not pulling away, just adjusting his grip so that our fingers fit together more naturally. It was such a small movement, but it sent a soft, steady warmth through me that I did not even try to fight. I just let it happen. "We are going to have to figure out how to exist like this," I said, my voice quiet but steady, because that part was real too. This was not just a moment. This was something that would follow us out of this room, into everything else. Lucas nodded slightly. "We will," he said. Simple. Certain. My chest tightened again, but it did not feel overwhelming anymore. It felt manageable, like something we could actually figure out instead of something that would fall apart the second we tried. I hesitated for a second, then added quietly, "And if it gets complicated?" He did not let me finish. "Then we deal with it," he said, the same way he had before, like it was not something to be afraid of. I huffed out a small breath, shaking my head slightly. "You really do not make things dramatic, do you?" I muttered. His lips curved just a little. "Only when it matters," he replied. That made my heart skip again, softer this time, less like a shock and more like something I was starting to recognize. I looked at him for a long second, taking in the way he stood there, steady and sure, like he had already decided this was worth it. Then I let out a slow breath and nodded once more. "Okay," I said again, and this time it felt final. Not like a question, not like something fragile, just real. Lucas held my gaze for a second longer. Then his expression shifted slightly, something more familiar slipping back in, something lighter. "You know," he said, his voice dropping just enough to make it feel intentional again. "You are still going to have to live with the fact that you confessed in your sleep." I blinked, then groaned softly, my free hand coming up to cover my face. "I was hoping we could pretend that part did not happen," I muttered. He huffed out a quiet laugh, the sound low and warm. "Not a chance," he said. I peeked at him through my fingers, already feeling the heat creep back into my face. "You are never going to let that go, are you?" I asked. His eyes flickered with something playful again, but there was still that same steady warmth underneath it. "No," he said simply. A beat. Then, softer, "But I do not think you really want me to." My breath caught. And just like that, I realized he was right about that too.